Hey there, hi there, ho there. Super Dave here from Progwarts with the 2024 first quarter review and preview. We'll call it a Prog-spectus, if you would. So as the first quarter of the year is ending, I figure it's time, take a stock of what's happened so far, gauge where things stand, take a little peek at the future maybe, just kind of see where things are, take the temperature. What I'm not going to try and suggest is that I've covered everything here that could be covered. I've got a very busy life, and I can only absorb so much info. The brain is getting old, things get pushed out, the attention span is weak at times, and at least up to this point, 2024 is so far continuing the trend of last year, which means it's continuing what is something of a golden age of modern prog. I love it. It's amazing right now, but it does mean a lot's going on. I keep up with what I can, and I admit, I let some things slip under my radar here and there. So anything that I've overlooked here, let me know in the comments section. Tell me, forgive me for missing anything that I happen to miss. I do my best. So anyway, while I'm going through all this, don't forget, please take a moment, like and subscribe. Check out the social media links below if you are of that kind of mind. And don't forget, give a listen sometime to my All Prog station, The Expanse, on Live 365, and maybe you'll find out you really enjoyed it. It's the whole world of prog, everything you can get to, as much as I'm able to get to, at least, certainly. And then there's also the Brain Salad Sunday every week, which is featuring nothing but classic 60s and 70s progressive rock. Check it out, please, when you get a chance. So, first thing to do is admit that we've had a lot of new great prog albums out so far. Matter of fact, more than I can keep up with, let's be perfectly honest. Like, we're talking 2-3 a week, it seems like. It is absolutely amazing. But right now, there are some that have really stood out for me so far. So we're going to give a little preview. These are at least as far as the first quarter is concerned. Hi, I speak for a living. These are the 5 albums that are absolutely sitting already on my radar, on my list as potential album of the year candidates. I'll list them quickly. And I don't know that anything is much of a huge surprise here, maybe one. So first and foremost, these are in no particular order, just listing them as they came up. So Big Big Train, The Likes of Us. I'm someone who's always been familiar with Big Big Train, not massively familiar with them, and it's something that I need to correct as far as digging into the back catalog, but wow, what a great album. And it feels like a rebirth of sorts from what I know to what I'm hearing now. Alberto Bravin has been just an excellent choice for the new vocalist, and seems to have just fit right in with the band. And it's just a really, really great album. I'm really enjoying it so far. Caligula's Horse, Charcoal Grace. Always been a fan of Caligula's Horse, and it feels like they did get delayed a little bit since the last album, Rise Radiant. So I was very happy to see something new from them, and it's really, really good. Really a great album. And it's just full of songs that are just so memorable in their distinct style. And I can tell you, if you haven't seen them live, the live performance really, really brings out some of the great highlights of the songs. These guys are really a great band live to see if you've not. I think their tour may be over or getting close to it at this point in time, but if you get the chance, go see them. Kairos, Mannequin. Wow, these guys came out of the blue for me, and I say a little bit because it is like there's a new band here. They are not a new band, but the direction they have taken is such a refreshing surprise, because I was familiar with them just a tiny bit before, and what they've done this time around with their integration of 80s flavor and techno pop influences into the prog world has just been such a breath of fresh air in so many ways. Right now, they're probably the front runner for me for album of the year. We'll see if they can hang on to that position as the year goes by. Digging into a classic, Steve Hackett, The Circus and the Night Whale, is such a typical Steve Hackett album, but it is such a Steve Hackett album done as best as Steve Hackett does albums, if that makes any sense. It's really been a treat to hear. It has got some just wonderful songs on it, some wonderful playing, and it has been something that I feel like I've lost track of Steve a little bit in the last several years, and it's been nice to get back into his stuff, yeah, I let myself slip a little and all that, let him fall in the background, but he's really brought himself back to the fore with this very reinvigorated, whatever you want to say, collection of songs. Very good so far. And a new one that's kind of coming out of the blue for me, Turbulence, Binary Dream. That's a band I've not been especially familiar with. I know they've had some albums out, but this is such a nice collection of prog metal, falling in there somewhere between like a Dream Theater heavier end and a Haken more quirky, eclectic end. But they balance out those two really very melodic, very nicely done. They are running neck and neck with maybe a couple of others, but right now they are among my top 5 of the albums so far this year. This could change from week to week, day to day sometimes, but for the most part, these 5 are going to be strong, I think, through the end of the year. So we'll see how many of them still end up in the top 20 of my album of the year list, and we'll see which one takes it. I'll be very curious to see what happens. Song of the Year candidates. Now, none of this is going to be probably a huge surprise, as most of these come from the albums I just talked about. But I think there are 4 songs that have really stood out for me and made an impact almost from the first listen. Big Train with Miramar. That was, I think, so it still remains my favorite song off of that album. And just what a fine track to sort of lead off and introduce Alberto Bravin to the rest of it, being that it was his song that he wrote, or at least the lyrics. And certainly you can tell the references within it are from historical places near his hometown, as you would have found out in my interview with him. That one stood out. Esoteric of Kairos. That was the song that absolutely blew me away. I did a reaction of it because I knew they were making waves, but I didn't know what to expect. And I think out of everything I've heard this year, that was maybe the really more than anything else, the song that just made me excited and really had an emotional impact for me. It just really, and I'm so happy I got to talk to the band, because that was the first thing I did after hearing it, was hit them up for an interview. And what a just cool bunch of people that put that song together and that album. Caligula's Horse, The World Breathes With Me. Yep, that album just leads off the bat with a classic Caligula's Horse type song. One of their best, I think, that they've written. It certainly, for me, ranks in their top 5, at least top 10 of all their songs I've heard. And the more I hear it, the more I like it. And Steve Hackett, Ghost Moon and Living Love. What gorgeous vocals on that song. That just jumped out at me immediately and kind of shook my tree from the very start. That is by far my favorite song off the album, and by far a very strong contender for Song of the Year for me, just based on the vocals alone. Just absolutely positively gorgeous. I can't say enough about it, and it just is so good to hear Steve back out there and active again. Not that he's ever taken much time off, but this new collection's really been a hot one for him. So, surprises so far. More than a few. Some new artists out there, some big new releases, Steve Hackett being one of those, obviously. New artists that really have jumped out at me, and they aren't necessarily new. At least one of them is. The others have done some stuff beforehand. Triton Project. That one jumps out. I forget at this moment the name of the young man who's basically the mastermind behind that, but what a slice of classic kind of prog metal in the style of older Dream Theater. Really melodic, really got some great, amazing playing in it. And it sort of came right out of nowhere, and really enjoyed that one. And I'm going to be continuing to listen to it some more. In a similar context, but perhaps blending in some other influences, is Almo. And that album, The Reconciliation, if I remember correctly, what a cool album so far. I've only gotten to listen to it a couple of times, so I'm still absorbing it, but it is definitely one of those ones that I think, had it come out a little bit earlier, probably could be sitting in my top 5 album of the year contenders right about now. So it is right in the mix there. And then a third one, a band that has been around for a little bit, but somehow has completely escaped my notice, Monkey 3. It's all instrumental album, but just a very cool kind of Pink Floyd tone to it. Space kind of psychedelic, prog rock, a little harder edged and all that. Really cool stuff. I somehow had missed them while they've been around, so I'm digging into that and trying to get familiar with their back catalog. So those three bands, in addition to the other ones I've named so far, I would highly recommend. Other bands that have kind of jumped into my radar, Dirt Poor Robins, Professor Caffeine, and the Insecurities. That one in particular, I can remember the description was Coheed and Cambria meets Thank You Scientist with a dash of Devin Townsend, and that's a spot-on description. Absolutely spot on. So if you're a fan of those artists, especially all three, go check those guys out. So just some really cool stuff coming out these days. Meanwhile, interesting news, and I'm not sure what to make of it, considering the fact that probably two of the biggest news things going on right now for me that stand out are both related to the same band, but different eras of the same band. And that band I'm talking about is King Crimson. Now, first and foremost, the biggest one to be mentioned so far is the band they're calling Beat, or maybe it's a project, or maybe it's the tour that they're naming. I'm not sure, but when somebody tells me a band is going to be out there that's going to consist of Steve Vai, Tony Levin, Danny Carey of Tool, and Adrian Belew, oh, whoa, mama, are you kidding? What an amazing band that is. And they will be touring North America, covering the 80s era of King Crimson. Now, of course, that was the time that Adrian Belew had joined the band. He was not with them previous to that. And we're talking albums like Three of a Perfect Pair and Beat. So if you're into that, you can't deny that is incredibly enticing to go see. I'm going to be honest, I'm disappointed they're not creating new music together. Not my favorite period of time as far as King Crimson music goes, but there's a lot to like at that point in time. So on one hand, wow, what an amazing band. On the other hand, okay, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little disappointed because I was hoping new music was coming out of this. Now, maybe it will. Maybe they go tour. Maybe at some point in time, these guys start writing together and some amazing new music comes out of that, because I really think they could put out some great stuff. And unfortunately, I am also going to have to miss the tour when it comes around my area. We are going to be out of the country. Yeah, timing is everything, as they say. So unfortunately, I'm kind of disappointed on two levels. My girlfriend, Lady Cat, absolutely adores that period of time of King Crimson. So she is very disappointed we're going to miss it, but not disappointed we're going to miss it because we're going to be at Oktoberfest in Munich. Yeah, I know. Trade-offs, always. Now, the other King Crimson news, and this is something that just hit my radar literally today. So, former King Crimson alums, Jacko Jaksic and Mel Collins, along with Jaksic's son Django, are going to be releasing an album in April entitled, next week. It's April 9th. Just realized, dude, this is April. So next week, releasing an album entitled Reimagining the Court of the Crimson King, in which they're going to reimagine and redo the debut album of King Crimson. Of course, that is In the Court of the Crimson King. So, dude, how cool is that? That is my favorite period of King Crimson, so I do want to very much check that out. But the fact that this was hidden from my view up until less than a week before it's supposed to come out? Wow, okay. And if those three people aren't enough, other guests appearing on the album are going to include Todd Rundgren, Arthur Brown, him of the God of Hellfire fame, Ian Pace of Dream Theater, of Deep Purple, Chester Thompson of Genesis. Usually he was their touring drummer, but now he is in, and I'm about three bands going through my head, and I'm going to say Unitopia and hope I've remembered correctly because I should have written that down as I went into it. It's an Australian prog band, I think. Yeah, I'm going to say Unitopia. Go with it. Roll with it. Don't question. And James Labrie of Dream Theater and Joe Lynn Turner, also formerly of Deep Purple, as well as other projects. Not Deep Purple, Rainbow, pardon me. they're linked. Leave me alone. Over the years, he's gotten around. He's worked with Yngwie Malmsteen, and that's not even everybody that's going to be on this album. So, what a guest list. Should be very, very cool. Looking forward to hearing that. So that's the biggest news I've heard in this first quarter this year. I'm certain I've missed one or two other things. Who knows? We'll see. Fill in the gaps that I've left open in the comments section. Let me know. Let's talk about all that. Meanwhile, kind of on a more personal note, some of you probably have known if you've watched this channel regularly, I have been working my way through Geddy Lee's memoir, My Effin' Life, and finally finished it. And wow, honestly, really, really what a fun book in so many ways. Also very much an eye-opener and very poignant in many places, especially talking about his parents and extended family's experiences going through the Holocaust in Poland first and then in Germany. That was, wow, rough to hear. But also so great to hear so much of their history and his own history through his own eyes and his perspective. But man, the penultimate chapter really hit me hard in the feels as that was recounting Neil Peart's final days. I'll be honest, that loss can still kick me pretty hard and get me misty under the right circumstances. And yeah, Geddy, you hit me. You hit me hard in the feels in that one. So that was emotional. But it's really a very cool book. And he did a really, really great job with it. If you've not read it, if you have any interest, even if you don't like Rush, go read it. Just what a cool bunch of guys to hear about. If you've never seen their documentary, Beyond the Lighted Stage, go watch that. It's just a great group of guys. Just wonderful people and such a great history with that band. So that was cool. I'm still working through my 50 Years of Rush project. I've not gotten as much accomplished so far as I'd hoped to, but I have corrected the omission in my life and reacted to Caressive Steel. If you haven't seen that video, it's been out for about a week now after it got through limbo hell or copyright hell, copyright limbo. That's out. Go check it out. It was a fun listen, and it was definitely interesting. It was definitely nice to finally get that little omission cleared. I got to talk with WMMR's Preston Elliott of Preston and Steve about our perspectives on Rush. I've got some other things. I've had some other things in the works. Haven't been able to close the deal on those yet. Got some other things. Let me tell you, I will admit I'm shooting for the stars a little bit on what I hope to do with this. And I recognize I'm a small fish in a big pond, and I'm playing with some big fish. So getting responses from them can be difficult, but I'm going to keep trying. We're going to see how far we can take this. Meanwhile, other interviews. It's been a dry month in March for me. That's partly due to some traveling on my part, partly due to some traveling by one of my regular contacts, and the fact that, like 80% of the prog world was on a cruise ship for the Cruise to the Edge, made it hard to get a hold of people. But I'm correcting that now and got a number of people not lined up yet, but in the works and expecting to get lined up hopefully very soon. Some more interviews coming, but wow. What do you hear so far? I led off with Steve Hackett. Mind blower. Legend. Talked to a legend. That was definitely one of my bucket list interviews. Alberto Bravin, new lead singer of Big Big Train. Bumblefoot, one of the linchpins of the rock world, prog world, metal world. He's everywhere, and he's got connections to so many of these bands that I talk about on a regular basis. But he had 2 albums coming out, with Whom Gods Destroy and another one with Art of Anarchy. Kairos, the entire band. That's the biggest group I've ever interviewed in one shot, but it was so very cool. And the inimitable Marco Miniman of the Aristocrats, an album that probably should be in that top 5 of mine for album of the year, and I neglected in the moment I was writing that to put them in there, but they are probably almost certainly going to make an appearance in my top 20. Very, very cool album as Duck, but what a cool dude Marco was. That was one of my favorite conversations. They've all been great. These people that I get to talk to at these times, just such cool people. I love musicians. It's just such cool people, and he was a fun person to talk to. Meanwhile, stuff that we can maybe expect later in the year. I'm hoping that Dream Theater, who I understand Mike Portnoy has completed drum tracking for the band. They're still working on other stuff, but boy, they're plugging along. So it seems optimistic that the new Dream Theater album, the first one with Mike Portnoy in 14 years, could be released by the end of this year. I'm very curious to see how that turns out. I've heard rumblings out there. Opeth is in the works with their new album, and perhaps we'll be having some guest appearances from the one and only Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull. How cool is that? So I'm looking forward. It's well overdue for some Opeth. And speaking of well overdue, Pain of Salvation. Anybody heard anything? Bueller? I don't know. I have not heard Boo. I'll admit, I haven't exactly had time to just go look and search, but I hope something's going on with those guys. I really am looking forward to new music with them. Meanwhile, we got tours. So far this year, it has been a banner year for tours. Leading off with the Bubba Bash, the tribute to Neil Peart that had Mike Portnoy and Frank Bello of Anthrax and a bevy of other guest stars there. You know, getting to meet and talk with these guys, however brief, was really cool, but the performances were just stellar. It was excellent. It was a great night. Even talking to Neil Peart's drum tech for all those years and good friend, Michael Mosbeck, I hope I got that pronounced correctly, was, hitting the feels a little bit too, because I know he was good friends, and he's a dude I've read about in Neil's books and Getty's book. And, wow. So it's there a little bit, but it was a great night. Caligula's Horse with Earthside. Talk about two bands at the height of their powers with their latest albums, one of whom was number 2 on my album of the year list. The other one who will probably be in the top 5, at least at this moment. Great night, and Caligula's Horse, again. Those guys kick some ass live. There's just so much energy and personality that comes out through them. Meanwhile, a whole evening with Haken. And they kicked some ass that night. That was probably the best I've heard them sound anywhere. Now, part of it might be the venue that helped. Part of it might be they weren't opening for anybody else, so the sound, could have been worked out just to their perfection and the engineering there. But what a cool tour. They just hit all the right notes there, and to see everything from Fauna performed live, chef's kiss. Great job, guys. Meanwhile, upcoming, Sewing with Trope is going to be the next big one with me. And how cool is that? Because I get to see my buddies Cody Lee Ford of Sewing and Diana and Moonhead of Trope. That I'm looking forward to that. I'm really hoping to maybe get a chance to hang with them and touch base a little bit. Trope's been I don't know who manages you guys, Trope, as far as your what's the word I'm looking for, booking agent. Damn. They get you guys lined up with all the right ones. Everybody is like this great band to be opening for. So kudos to you. And I am on pins and needles. Speaking of things coming out soon, I almost let slip. You guys have an album, a double album that should be coming out soon. Just had a new single. Was really cool. So I'm looking forward to that album as well. Almost lost track of that when I was writing this. Beat, unfortunately, we get to miss. King's X going to be out and about. I'm going to hopefully get to see them. We'll see how that works out. And this will be a little out of the blue for all of you watching. Sarah McLachlan, celebrating 30 years of Fumbling Towards Ecstasy. Do not give me shit. I fucking love Sarah. She is an amazing artist. She's got a voice of an angel, but that album, I will say, yes, she drifted a bit towards probably, adult contemporary stuff later in her career, post Lilith. But Fumbling Towards Ecstasy, that to me is one of the great albums of the 90s. That just had a wall of sound production going for it. There was a dark edge to it that she didn't have later on. I don't know if she was angry about something or whatever, processing some bitterness, but it flavored the album in a way. I just love that album. I'm so looking forward to seeing her live. So yes, don't judge me. Don't give me crap. I know she's not prog. Deal with it. I have interests outside prog. Meanwhile, for the channel, plans coming up for the upcoming year as we continue to grow. We're doing that slow crawl to 1,000 subscribers, hoping to get there before the year is out. More specials, more interviews for 50 years of Rush. Yeah, I'm going to keep plugging. I'm going to do this. And I've got a bit of a documentary in the works. Yes, I'm finding out I may have just slightly bit off more than I can chew for that in terms of how much time I have. We'll see. but I'm going to get it done. I will get it done. Lots more interviews coming up. As I mentioned, I've got a bunch of bands I have in my sights right now, including 4 big hitters, heavy hitters. So I'm confident we're going to get those nailed down coming up very soon. March was an entire drought month for interviews. That's weird. Got to get it fixed. More prog related and prog adjacent artist reactions. I've been working my way through Meshuggah and Amorphous and Cardiacs. What a discovery Cardiacs has been. What a discovery it is to understand Meshuggah and get a better feel for what they're doing. And I got some other ones more off the wall. We started with Mr. Bungle. We've got a few other things coming up. But keep suggestions coming. I love getting suggestions for this stuff because I found some really cool artists and some cool music that way. Meanwhile, what do you want to see? What do you want to see me doing? What do you want to hear me doing on this channel? What suggestions do you have? I know a lot of channels do a lot of lists. I hesitate for lists sometimes unless they're newer because once I've done the old list, there's nothing to do again. It's been done. It's over. So give me your suggestions. What can I do that you're not getting elsewhere? What can I do that's different? Where can I zig when others are zagging? Or do you want me to zag too? I can do that too. I am open to suggestions. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your thoughts. Please let me know. And that is the 2024 first quarter Prog-spectus right there. The first Prog-spectus of Bleeding Edge. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm curious to hear your comments, your thoughts, your suggestions. That's all I got for you for right now. So, as always, never fear to deviate from the norm. Keep it proggy. This is Supa Dave, signing off.